Excited to bring this story to you. This was recorded on a local podcast that I run, and Hannah Vale received a direct dream from God, and I wanted to share this with you. It's big time. What I want you to take away from it is, one, that God speaks in dreams and visions, and it does happen. But two, what was Hannah doing before she received the dream from God? Because I think that we are frozen, we are stuck. We're waiting on kind of this Jeremiah moment of a sign from heaven and coal to be put on our tongue before we know what we are supposed to be doing. And our cars are parked, and so God can't move our cars forward. He can't steer it because it's not in motion. And what Hannah was doing was she was taking action. She was doing things. And then it was directed and steered by God. And that's kind of the big thing that I want you to hear, is that, yes, God does speak in dreams and visions, but to... What?
I'm so sorry. You don't have a sign.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, we're going this direction. Sorry.
And what's really, really crazy is that the obstacles that you encounter whenever you try to do these things that God wants you to do, but I'll need to bring Hannah back on and talk about how hard of a journey that it was to actualize the dream that God gave her, because I know that it wasn't easy. And just to get this stupid video clip intro thing to you, I have Zoom failed me, which Zoom never fails. My direct recording video software failed me. My syncing the microphone to the computer failed me. And so that's what happens, is once we hit that first block, we stop and we park our car again, waiting for the right thing to do. And I'm sorry that that's in this intro, but maybe it's all for a purpose. And man, dial in you, become your creative best. It's what we talk about here on Preferable Life. I'll put links to the whole show, the whole podcast, if you want to hear the whole thing. Hannah and my discussion on really her becoming her creative best and having a lot of fun, but a lot of tough stuff along the way. I'm JoshPreferableLife.com. Check out this awesome dream given by God to Hannah Vale. So you started teaching. Principal.
My master's is in educational leadership.
Okay.
So that's what I intended to do with my life. I wanted to be a middle school principal. I did my internship in Rogersville with Rick McFeeters, who was just a favorite principal of mine. Really appreciated him and his leadership in my life. But then I had a kid, and then another kid, and I had 2 babies under 2, and I really couldn't afford to teach anymore. So that caused me to relook at my life and think, man, okay, first of all, childcare is so expensive. And then it's so expensive. And then if you want to pay for the quality that you want, I mean, it wasn't worth teaching. So I had some choices to make. Jeff and I really prayed about that. And I thought, you know what? There are other people in the same boat, because at the time there wasn't really any licensed childcare in Rogersville. So I decided to quit my job, my nice regular paycheck and health insurance job that I loved. I really did love teaching and coaching speech and debate and being involved in all of that. And student council. I just loved that world. And go ahead and start an in-home program, build it from the ground up. I had kids Monday through Friday. We ran a preschool curriculum. We were not watching soap operas and eating bonbons. We were doing all the educational things.
Yeah.
So it grew, and my intention was to do that for a little while and then probably go back to teaching or do something that allowed me to be flexible with my kids' schedules and still be involved in all of the things that they had going on. The Lord just had other plans. So when I started to think about going back to teaching. There was a pastor who approached me about using their facility, and they had built it to be a daycare. And I said, well, we could do it as part of the church. And I kind of thought that would be some security for me, like being on the payroll for the church and then building this program for them. But their council came back and said, no, they didn't want to take on that financial responsibility, but that if I wanted to run it as a separate business, they would be happy to take my rent money. And I was like, I don't think so. So I took about a year after that initial conversation, and it just kept like coming back to my mind. Like, it was almost a challenge in my mind, right? Like, I could totally do this. Like, I think I could do this. I think I could build a program. And so I had this really weird dream about getting out of my house, and I was turning the doorknob of my house because there was a fire in my house. It was just this dream that like prompted me to do something, right? It was that sense of urgency that you wake up with. And I am not like a super weird dreamer person. And so I woke up feeling like, I wonder if that meant something, right? So I had this dream several times, and I decided to tell my husband about it. And he was like, yeah, you eat way too much crap before you go to bed. Like, quit eating garbage and get some good sleep. And so that next morning, though, I got up early. I was getting ready for the day, and Joa was 4 at the time. He comes in my room. He's just, having his morning pee while I'm getting ready at the sink. And he's like, Mom, I got to tell you what I sleeped about. And we never had a conversation about dreaming. It's so abstract for a kid that age. Like, oh, you think about something while you sleep, and then you wake up and still have it in your mind. And that's a dream. So I was like, oh, you mean you had a dream? He's like, I don't know. I slept about something. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, what'd you sleep about? And the kid like laid out my dream for me. He was like, you were in the house and it was on fire, and why didn't you get out? I mean, I like got chills and tears in my eyes standing looking at myself in the mirror, and was like, okay, Lord, like if that's what you want me to do, I will build this thing today. So that was kind of what it took for me to start that journey. And that was in May of 2014, and then we opened the Learning Center August 4th of 2014 with 14 kids. And it was
so crazy. From your basement, and a handful.
It was a 1-floor little 3-bedroom 2-bath house. No basement.
From your house,
little piddly house, yes.
To God communicating via dreams.
Yeah.
And I assume that had some kind of rifts spiritually, possibly, into like the whammy, like God communicating in your dream. Like, is that correct?
I guess you mean like riffs with me.
Yeah, and just yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I was raised, very, I guess charismatic would be the best word. I almost feel like I shy away from those things. Like, I want God to be so practical in my life that he kind of has to beat me over the head to like go, no, this is me. Like, will you listen? Because I don't want to be so spiritually out there that it's like, oh, every little thing is like, oh, that must be a sign. There was a butterfly that flew by today, and I just knew that was a sign. Like, yeah. God's in all things, and everything is spiritual. There's no, in my mind, denying that. I think that's truth. But I think that he does use such practical ways, and I just maybe wasn't getting the message. So he's like, all right, I gotta reel this one in.
Yeah.
So, and he does that with me because of my personality.
So that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Where's the Learning Center today?
So we are licensed for 65 kids, and we are full. And then we have an additional 20% of kids during our overlap time, 3:30 to 5:30. So we pick up kids at 3 of the local elementary schools. We have them in the morning, and we take them to school, and then we have them in the afternoons, bring them back, give them snacks, let them play outside, and they get together. So all 3 of my kids are there. This is Joa and Jan are in elementary school, and then Susie J is in the 2-year-old classroom. She bebops around in there. But I just feel super blessed in that, like, we weren't like some overnight success, right? We added on a family at a time, a teacher at a time. We didn't really do any advertising or marketing. It was really just word of mouth. I feel like that was such good, steady growth for us because it allowed me to like get to know the kids, get to know the families, get to know my teachers, have them in the building. And then kind of as we would grow and add on a few kids, you know, once you get past your ratio, then you add another classroom and you kind of build that again. But like I said, we're full right now. We have about between 40 and 50 kids on our waiting list.
Well, hope that encouraged you. Hope that inspired you. Hit the thumbs up if it did. And hit subscribe. Helping you become your creative best, overcoming all these obstacles, and figuring out your purpose is what we're doing here. I'm Josh, preferrablelife.com. Hit subscribe. Hit the bell. Do you. Dial in the core DNA of you. See you later.